Okay.
All right, awesome. So this is the All Pueblo Grows community educational event for August. We will have Jared talking about seed saving. Um, because of COVID, obviously the seed library at Rawlings hasn't been getting a ton of traffic. It is still open when they're open, but we also have our little seed libraries all around town. They're contactless. They have seeds in them, little packages, little kind of fall planting kits or what are in them now that Derek put together. And you can find a map of where the locations are at our website at allpublicgrows.org. So I will have Jared go ahead and start to share your screen and we will do the presentation now.
All right, awesome. Let's see. Screen share. Is everybody able to see that?
Yes.
Awesome. Give it a second to load. While it's usually, this is probably one of my favorite presentations to give. So it's a little different, not being present with everybody else, but it's nice to see some friends on the screen, and to those that aren't able to join, hope everybody's doing well. Kind of like seed saving and gardening, this year has been unpredictable and very interesting. Kind of when you think you have stuff figured out, it just seems to go a whole different direction. So anytime I give this presentation, I want to always make just a few disclaimers. One, just have fun. Just enjoy the process of saving seed, collecting seed. It takes a lot of effort to get to this point, just throughout the growing process. So have fun with it. Don't try and stress on the meticulous approach to saving seed, the hard questions of, am I going to have a hybrid crop? Am I going to have something that was true to form? Am I getting the characteristics of the produce that I'm trying to achieve? Don't really focus on that. That'll come over time. That'll come through just trial and error, unless you're an expert. I'm not a biologist by any means. So I've had seed that I've saved, and then the next year it grows and it's nothing to what I thought it was going to be. So just have fun with it. Enjoy it. There's something special to be said to grow an item, save the seed, harvest that seed, and then grow it again the next year. There truly is something special to it. So just have fun. So we'll go ahead and begin seed saving, guiding this year's harvest to next year's crop. So it's kind of a process of getting things prepared for next year, is really all we're doing. But the overlooked value, seeds are the most precious and valuable component of gardening. If we don't have seeds, we're not going to have anything to grow. So as we're trying to look through catalogs, look through local nurseries and sources to find the crop that we want, to grow the produce that we want, the stuff that we may not be able to find in the store or something we've tried elsewhere, we're trying to bring that seed in. So in my opinion, it truly is the most precious and valuable component. But kind of going into that, how much emphasis should we put into saving seeds? Just as we stressed over which seed we need to sow, we should focus on which seed we will save. Kind of what I've learned through experience is you start growing, the garden expands. Next thing you know, you're not wanting to eat things, you just want to allow them to go to seed. And then before you know it, you grew all year just to have seed. You weren't able to enjoy anything, the tomatoes. You have an heirloom growing, you have maybe 6 tomatoes on the vines, and you don't want to eat any of them. So we just kind of want to put the emphasis into collecting just a few seeds. One of the things to know is that the seeds are going to adapt. So we just want to allow things to kind of grow and just build upon themselves and let them take care of themselves naturally. So we know we have a process that we have to do to get seed. So the first one is we have to collect the seed. Viable seeds are collected, preserved, and distributed for future planting. So that's kind of how this library has grown. Is it's a resource to share seed, to share different varieties with each other, to look at the collection that we're working on that people may not know about. But we want to just make sure that we have viable seeds. And so it's important to allow those plants to kind of grow to a mature state. Often most things that we pick are going to, for seed, are going to be past ripe. Um, the seeds are a little bit behind in the process of development to certain things. So we have to allow them to kind of rot on the plant or grow, bolt, start creating flowers when we would have ate all the lettuce or the leafy greens. So we just want to make sure that we're getting viable seeds. And then we want to sow, I don't know if that's the proper term, sow, but we want to choose the seed that was sown in a suitable location or environment to grow. As we know, Pueblo is very, very harsh, very hard to grow certain things. The extreme temperatures that we get in the summer are a little bit intolerable for certain varieties. So we start bringing things in from the East Coast or some of these colder regions, more north. And then we wonder, why are they struggling? Why are they hard to grow here? Well, that seed stock has to adapt. It's going to start collecting information from where it was grown, the temperature, the climate, the growing medium, the conditions that we allow the plants to thrive. And they're going to retain that information. They're going to start building upon it. I think one of the most interesting things to me, the seeds, I can't remember the specifics, but a seed contains more information than like a microchip processor. So the computing processors that we have are pretty impressive. The seeds are equally impressive, if not more impressive. So they're just retaining information, building on that information, and just growing. But we're also going to save seeds that were nurtured. We want to make sure our plants are cared for and maintained. We don't want to just be saving the seeds to something that was sickly or not really doing well. We don't want to start getting seeds that are full of mold and other issues that might present a little bit difficult growing in the future. So we want to just nurture our plants, care for them, and then allow those seeds to fully develop. And then we could start looking into the careful attention to desired qualities. We might want tomatoes that are ripened early, so we're going to start saving seeds off of the first fruit that appears, the first vegetables that appear. We might select seeds that are from something that we harvest at the end of the season, something that's going to carry on into those colder months, something that might be late season, whatever varieties or desires that we're trying to achieve. And then we want to consume. We want to make sure we're eating some fruits and vegetables that have nutrition, leaving our flowers, pods, or fruit to produce seed. So we might eat 80-90% of our radishes and allow the rest to go to seed, the ones that popped up first, or the ones that had more vigor to their growth or development. I've been pulling green beans, and I know I'm not going to catch all the green beans. I have 8 plants, and I think the biggest one's probably about 10 feet long, or tall rather. It's folding over. I'm not going to get all those bean pods out of there, but I'm going to have a lot of seed for next year. Perfectly fine. And then we just want to harvest it. So we're going to get our seed, collect it, prepare it for storage, and save it for future planting. And we'll get into that just a little bit more. So again, why do we save seed? One of the biggest things is just to sustain varieties. Through seed saving, we're able to sustain particular varieties of strains and species of certain plants. We might be able to pass down a tomato that we grew to our children, to the next generation. Perhaps we've received seeds from grandparents. That's kind of how things were used to be done. Saving seeds, passing them along, kind of the heirloom tradition. And then the adaptation of plants. Saving seed promotes adapted plants, resistant plants, and desired traits. So as we kind of mentioned, these seeds just retain that computing processing information. So they just build upon it, the temperatures, the soil conditions, the water levels that they received. And they just kind of adapt. They adapt to our climate. They start adapting to the heat, the cold temperatures at night, the length of sunlight, the elevation. So they adapt. We want to bring those seeds that we might have tried on the East Coast and start developing them to grow here, something that might have a chance to be successful. And then we just want to make sure we're having healthy vegetables. So we can kind of control the taste, the flavor, the correct characteristics, and some of the health benefits of a plant by saving seeds, trying to save only the seed from the biggest plant, the tallest plant, the one that produces the most, the best flavor of a tomato, the heat of a chili. Those are the things that we could kind of tailor and control just a little bit with seed saving. So there's a time we want to save these seeds. So the first thing is when they're available, we want to make sure we're saving them before they fall off and then they're distributed naturally for next year. The intent of a plant is to grow and produce seed. This will happen without our help. I finally cleared out the wild arugula that covered a good portion of my backyard by selective harvesting and not allowing them to go to seed. But sometimes we can't get there quick enough, wait just a little bit too late, and the next thing you know, we have a forest or jungle growing kind of unwanted or unintended. But again, when they're viable, so mature seeds are more viable than immature seeds. We grab those chili seed or chilies when they're green. Seeds may not be fully developed, so we might want to leave some of those chilies on the plant to mature, to turn red, to allow that seed growth to fully take its form. And then when they're ready, probably the same thing as when they're available. But a keen eye and a good timing will determine the right time to collect seed. Certain plants, carrots, or other flowering plants, we can't collect it if those flowers haven't formed or if they haven't developed. So we just got to allow that time for the seeds to develop and grow. This is always a tough question and a topic that my approach and mindset might be a little bit different than yours. So I'm not trying to push my methodology on anyone, but open pollinated seed versus hybrid seed. There is a difference, but don't overcomplicate the process. Understanding the difference is key, kind of what is desired, what is our intention, are we okay with the results, and are we having fun? We might have some of those tomatoes that are open pollinated. We might have one variety, a Cherokee beefsteak to the left, and we might have a small yellow tomato cherry on the right side. Plants, wind, animals, things are going to move that pollen from one plant to the other, and then we might end up with a hybridized seed. Is it a big deal? I guess if you weren't okay with the potential outcome, possibly. If not, hey, you might be beyond to making something new. So that's always a tough question. Limiting amount of varieties of a certain plant or species is one way to kind of control the unintended hybridization of seeds. Question I remember getting a lot in person are, can you save hybrid seeds? Are they viable? I would say in my experience, I remember planting some Kentucky Blue Lake pole beans that were a hybrid. I saved those seeds and I've continued to grow them. They haven't steered too far from the original plant that I had. But at times I do notice that some of the qualities of the plants that kind of produce that strain or that species show themselves more in one plant versus the other plant. So that's kind of my experience with hybridized seeds, just knowing that some of the stuff will kind of split and change. The Calavasita squash, it might change back to whatever's more dominant in that strain. The squash plants, the more difficult strain species to collect seed or grow mature seed from. We won't spend too much time on that just because it gets into a crazy conversation. But some of the forms of seed that we collect from might be pods. Two of the biggest things there would be peas, beans. They're really simple, probably one of the easiest seeds to collect. I remember eating lunch with some coworkers earlier this year, and I found it extremely interesting to find that they didn't understand that dried beans came from green beans. They didn't know they were the same plant. Um, I was surprised. I kind of laughed at it, and then I went back to think um, it's probably due to poor education, and not to discredit their education, but it's something I don't think we stress a lot of time on, is where our food comes from. But pods, they're just really simple to grow. So we just let those green beans or those peas, the snap peas, I couldn't get them when they were at their fullest flavor. Now they're really swollen. The peas are fully developed inside. That's okay. I'm just going to leave it on the plant. Go let it dry out. It's going to turn brown, white, whatever color other than green, is usually an indication that it's mature, especially the dryness. And then we just allow those to dry, break them open, and then we're able to collect that seed. Some of the other things that create pods are, radish, arugula, really, really tiny pods on there. And I was really intrigued the first time I grew that arugula or the radish, to see the flowers grow. I'm like, hey, these are pretty neat. And then little pods started growing on them, and whoa, what's that little pod? Well, it's come to find out it was contained with seed. So those we allow to do the same thing, just dry out, grow till the end of the year, break them open, and then we have that seed. Flowers, kind of just like some of our marigolds and other flowers. Once that center kind of dries out, we just pull it out, and there's the seed. Some of the plants that flower, we have lettuce, carrots, parsnips, beets. Some of these other plants will produce seed through the flower head. Really easy to save. Same thing, we just allow them time to dry and to be removed. Do note that the carrots and the parsnips, those are going to be our biennials. So the carrots that we pulled this year, but all we got were nice flower or leafy green on it. The carrots stayed deep into the soil. That's okay. Don't dig them up if you don't have to or don't want to. Forgot about them. They're going to come up next year, and they're going to create the seed. In truth, carrots are probably one of my favorite flowers. They smell great and they look nice to me. And then they turn into a lot of seed. Some of the seed containing fruit, same thing. We just want to allow this to mature. Could be a little bit trickier in saving some of the fully matured seed. The melons, the squash, the cucumbers, those just have a tendency to not come back true to form. We might lose them just a little bit from what we were hoping to get, just due to the variation and the meticulous efforts put into coming up with the muncher cucumber or the different melons that we have. But once they start getting a little bit past ripe, a little squishy, super huge, then we know we're going to have some seeds in there. Our tomatoes and our peppers, they contain seeds. Same thing, we just want to let them grow past their picking date, and allow them to get mature. The tomatoes, the peppers, typically, if they're isolated, the peppers, they might come back true to form more often than not. So we know we're going to have a Pueblo chili next year by saving a Pueblo chili this year. Takes just a little bit more to collect some of those seeds. I think we have some slides on fermenting. I'm a big proponent of fermenting tomato seeds. I'll wash my cucumber and cantaloupe seeds and kind of do a fermenting process. I don't know if it helps those ones too much, but the tomatoes, I'm a big proponent of fermenting the seeds. For me, it's just the easiest process to collect those seeds. And there we go, ferment, to do or not. Honestly, I found it's a lot less complicating than it seems. People often ask, does it work? In my opinion, it does. One of the biggest benefits that I get out of it is it cleans the seed, but then it allows me to determine what's more viable. So as we start to ferment those tomato seeds, it's just a process of letting the bacterial growth take shape on those seeds. The mature ones, the viable ones, they have a little bit more mass and density to them, so they sink to the bottom of our liquid solution, and the non-viable ones float because they haven't fully developed yet. So how it works, it's just helps remove the gelatin membrane that protects the seed from prematurely germinating. So the kind of the natural defense of a tomato is it was left in the wild, the seed kind of has that slimy coat to it. That just helps allow water to not penetrate the seed to create germination. So when it's on the vine over winter, get some of those nice warm days, it's not going to germinate unless that water's removed that coating. And then where it works, for me, it works really great on tomato and cucumber seeds. And then to kind of make it easy, so we got our overripe tomato. Usually in person, I'd like to demonstrate this. Unfortunately, I don't have that option right now. My tomatoes aren't quite ready to collect seed. But we're just going to slice those tomatoes in half, quarter them, however we want to do it. And then we just kind of want to squeeze that seed membrane into a cup or jar with some water in it. And then we let the chemistry do its job. So we just take that jar, we place it into a cool, dark place, just like we're going to germinate a seed. And then we just allow time to work. In my experience, typically in about 2 to 4 days, you'll start smelling it. It's going to have that rotten tomato smell to it. It's going to start getting a little funk on top, a little mold, a little crazy foaming action. But then you're also going to notice the seed separation, and then we're going to have a nice big pile of seed at the bottom of that water. And then the top, we're going to have that foam, froth, and some of the other seed. Then we just separate, or scoop out that top portion of seed or goop, kind of strain out the water, and then remove the seeds at the bottom. I like to put them onto coffee filter, paper plate, something that's going to pull that moisture away, not just have that moisture stick onto it. And then we dry it and then we store it. So it works pretty well. When we do store them, we don't want to keep them in anything that's going to retain that moisture. I've learned ceramic plates don't work too great, just a regular dish plate. That water just kind of sits and pulls at the bottom. Then you start getting a little bit of mold. Put them into plastic bags while they're still damp or not fully dry. Not really the best idea. You can use a paper bag when I know they're fully dry. I like to use recycled pill bottles, just nice little airtight containers that keep them nice and dry and then easy to store. So a great question. This is just a little table. You guys might have different experiences. But how long are seeds viable? Sometimes we'll buy way too many seeds than what we need. So then they just kind of sit in the cupboard and we forget about them. And then a couple years later, we find them and, oh yeah, I didn't get to plant this tomato last year, 3 years ago, 4 years ago. Is it going to be viable? Generally, there's about a 7% reduction in viability each year that goes into a seed that went unplanted. So tomato, if it's over a year, it's viable. Beans, lettuce, cucumbers are viable. 3 years, we're still viable. 5 years, tomatoes are typically still viable. Our beans, our lettuce may be a little bit less viable. But what's amazing, cucumbers are 10 years you could let them go. What I always say is if you find old seed or find some seeds that you're just unsure of, haven't planted in a while, know nothing about them, it doesn't hurt to try and germinate them. If they germinate, allow them the opportunity to grow. They might be a little bit weak or take a little bit more nurturing. That's okay. My thought is if you get a seed to germinate, give it the best care you can to allow it to grow and produce. Don't be afraid. This is the same thing, just a little timeline of some seed availability. When is that seed going to be ready? Based on our annual or biannual seed vibe availability and planting times. So, we might be planting our cole crops in March, April, putting down some carrot seeds. May, we might be putting down our tender crops. And then, early July, late June, we might be saving some of the seed from our cole crops. Some of our radishes, some of those lettuces have already bolted. The heat's got to them, and now they're flowering. September, October, we might be getting some of our tender seed saved. And then our biennials, our carrot, we planted those in April of 19. Well, hey, now here in July, August, I have tons of seed from those carrots. I'm able to save them. They just grew the following year. So kind of in summary, seed saving can be as easy or as complicated as you make it. I got into the habit, and so I didn't really plant much last year, of just growing things and not eating them. It was strictly to save seed. And then I was hoarding the seed. And then now I have, I think I donated most of the seed that I have. But that's all I had. That was the fruit of my labor. So it was really complicated. Trying to strategically place things, keep things isolated, separated. So I kind of lost a little bit of the joy and fun to gardening. But the purpose of seed saving is to select the traits that we enjoy, prefer, or need, and then allowing those plants to adapt to our climate and acclimate to the conditions they'll be grown in. Seed saving can be enjoyable, or it can be frustrating. Just as frustrating as it is to germinate a seed and get it to grow, sometimes saving that seed could also be frustrating. And in my humble opinion, seed saving is a gardener's responsibility. We have to be able to allow those plants to grow, give them the right place, the right situation to be successful. But we should also steward them into the next generation. So if we just allow plants to grow, not really pay much attention to them, the next thing you know, they're reseeding themselves, and then we have a jungle. Then they're choking each other out, trying to survive. Not really a great approach. So in that respect, it's kind of our responsibility to save the seeds and kind of allow them to be shared and distributed. And seed saving needs to be planned just as plant selection needs to be planned. I will tell you by experience, it's very difficult to sit there and try and harvest, 200 to 400 square foot garden plot, save all the seeds at one time. A lot of work, a lot of effort. So you kind of want to plan it out just a little bit. And now I guess if there's any questions, we'll definitely take questions.
Feel free to unmute and ask a
I don't have
question.
any questions. I don't have any questions, but thank you very much, Jared. You did a really good job. I actually learned a few things there, especially about the carrots. Somebody was going to give me some carrot seed recently. I forget who it was, but they said that they didn't know when they were planted. So I think I can now go back to her and tell her exactly when they should have come from. So thank you.
Yeah.
So Jared, do you want to see what happens when you cross a yard-long beam with a blue lake?
I do. I'm very interested in that. Oh, wow.
We're going to save these seeds and see what happens next year. I might have them share with the library too, but they're nice. I think they'll be a good canner. Kind of a bummer trying to find a jar to put that in though.
Yeah, was that in an unintended or intended?
No, it was unintended. They were next to blue lakes, and this is what we wound up getting out of it. I had got some yard longers from the totes at the extension office before COVID shut them down, and they're tasty. I like these.
Okay.
We'll see if this is an improvement. They're not quite as long, but they're meatier. So maybe that might be one of the good traits that became of this.
No, that's awesome. No, I kind of think it's fun to allow a little cross pollination from time to time, and just kind of see what happens. And I don't remember much, but I think Gregor Mendel, the father of biology, you start hearing back, and it's like, man, how would you even think to kind of steer these plants a certain direction? So it's interesting to just see it naturally happen and kind of invoke that thought in us.
All right. Well, if nobody has any more questions, I guess we'll call it a day. Jared, thank you very much. That was an awesome presentation. And thanks everybody else for joining in.
Awesome. Well, I hope everybody has a great day, and maybe we'll be able to see each other at some point.
I hope so. Thank you. Have a good day.
All right. We'll see you guys.
Thank you.